Thank you very much. I've been in China a number of times now, and I'm used to warm welcomes, so thank you. I've got an interest in children in my work, and I work with Bamboozle. It's a theatre company. You saw a clip. We work with learning disabled children, and we work with children on the autistic spectrum. And what I'm going to share with you this evening is three things. First of all, how Bamboozle, how we started, why we've come to be doing this, and why I'm standing here tonight. And then going to talk about the use of praise, which is prevalent across the world. And then I'm going to talk about the Bamboozle approach, which is a methodology we've devised over 25 years in order to engage with young people who have learning disabilities. I'll tell you about Amy. Amy's a child who has cerebral palsy. She was severely brain damaged at birth, and the expression on her face there is the expression she always has on her face. She has very little possibility of expressing her needs with facial expressions. She can't speak. She can't feed herself. She's fed through a tube in her stomach. And she has a lot of needs. It's easy to make an assumption about a child like Amy about what she can't do, or that she can't do anything, because what she can't do is evident on a daily basis. When we were working with Amy when she was 6, about 10 years ago, 9 or 10 years ago, we were doing a project with a group of families who had disabled children, 6 families, disabled children like Amy, and their non-disabled siblings. And we were doing a story called Going on a Bear Hunt. And we'd gone through lots of multisensory activities with the groups until the third afternoon. We were getting close to where the bear lived. And in the theatre studio, in the distance, was a cave, and we could hear the bear in the cave. And we said to the group, they were sitting on cushions on the floor. Amy was in her mother's arms. That's Iona, her mother, there. And I said to the group, who would like to go down to the cave, see what they can see, and come back and tell us what's going on? And Amy lurched in her mother's arms. And that's not something Amy normally does. Some children with cerebral palsy do quite a lot of involuntary movement. She doesn't. So that was surprising to us. So I asked again, so Amy, do you want to go down to see if you can see anything and come back and tell us? And she lurched again. And in that moment, things changed for us. This was in the very early days of Bamboozle, and it seemed to be a clear indication that something more was going on in Amy's head than we had yet realized. And it led us to one of the fundamental beliefs of the Bamboozle approach, more of which later. The belief is that children, whatever their abilities or disabilities, they know more than we think they do. And they can do more than they yet realize. Another child we met in the early days of the company was Callum. And Callum is a boy who's on the autistic spectrum. And he wasn't supposed to be in this project because the project was for children like Amy. And we'd had very little experience of autism at that point. And we were gathering families and people around in the circle to welcome them. And Callum was very distressed. As one of the things with children with autism, they often don't like new places. So he was in a new place, in a theatre. It was dark, there were lights, it was different, and he was very obviously distressed. He was making a lot of noise, and he was clambering all over his mother, and he was running here, and he was running back behind the seating on the stage. And have you ever had the experience of meeting someone, either a colleague at work or a child, and trying to get them to do something, and something happened, and you've not got a clue what to do next? I have. It was then. We looked at each other and thought, what do we do now? We tried a few things, and then I by chance, I tried matching him. And I matched the noises he was making, and I matched his breathing. And the thing with matching breathing is you get quite a deep level of rapport with the person on an unconscious level, because breathing generally is an unconscious activity. And over a period of time, Callum calmed down. And I continued matching his breathing and the sounds he was making and the movements he was making for an hour and a quarter. And during that time, he calmed down to the point where his mother had never seen him so calm outside their own home, ever. And in that moment, we discovered something, a way of making connection, and we committed to starting to provide activities for children like Callum, children like Amy, for whom there often is nowhere the parents can take them. This is Amy now, or last year anyway, age 15. You see the expression on her face is more or less the same. A lot has happened for her over the intervening 10 years. Her parents found a way of discovering how she could say yes or no. She says yes by blinking twice, and she says no by blinking once. And once the parents or teachers or whoever is around a child can find out that yes or no, the whole world opens up. And it turns out Amy is very well capable of choosing her own clothes. She chooses her hairstyle. I was with her and her family at Leicester Racecourse, horse racing course, and she had been through the race card and picked the winners to put her parents' money on. Actually, she hadn't picked the winners. She'd picked some horses she liked the names of. And let me tell you something about someone else who we haven't met. This is Jonathan Bryan. He also has cerebral palsy, like Amy, and he has a much more expressive face, as you can see, and he's pointing there. But like Amy, he can't speak, and for the first 10 years of his life, his communication was completely misread. Not completely, not by his mother. And his mother and one of the teachers, they devised a system. He has a grid with the letters of the alphabet on, and he points with his eye he might point with his arm, actually, he can point, but I think he points with his eye at the letter, and so he writes one letter at a time. And the I Can Write book is a phenomenon, which he wrote aged 12, and it's written like a novelist. If I were able to write prose like that, I would be delighted. And what it describes is how he spent years being given a multi-sensory curriculum and talked to as if he was stupid. And that happens to a lot of learning disabled children. They're patronized in the tone of voice we use. And Iona read the book to Amy and asked Amy if she would like to read. And she blinked so fast. She, too, has been gagging to be taught to read. And now Iona then went on a course to learn how to do it, and she's being taught to read. Children can do more than we think they can, and we need to challenge the assumptions around learning disabled children. To the second section, the use of praise. Have you noticed how much children get praised these days? I have. It seems that everywhere I go, coming through Heathrow Airport on Monday to get here, there was a little boy wheeling his own trolley. I think he was probably about 6. He was wheeling it perfectly competently, and his mother said to him, "Push it. That's right. Well done." And what he did was stop. I wondered why he was praised for doing something so simple. And what it did was stopped him. He had to check. He thought, well, I am pushing it. Praise, I think, I want to argue, is vastly overused, and it's used with a good heart, and it's used to get a result, but I'm not sure that it gets the result we want it to get. I want to argue that the use of praise, as we hear it all over the UK, in schools, in parenting, in shops, on radio programs, and I understand from people we're working with at Shanghai Children's Art Theatre, it's used all over China. It's certainly prevalent in Singapore, the United States, other places we've been. Praise actually manipulates children to get them to do what we want them to do, is one way of looking at it. It diminishes a child's autonomy and their confidence, and it reduces motivation. For years I wondered why what I thought was such a bad idea was so prevalent in every school I went into, until I came across a book by Alfie Kohn called Punished by Rewards, and he explains why it is, and it comes from behaviorism, which some of you will know is a way of describing human behavior and animal behavior. And psychologists, behaviorists came up with the theory, or extended the theory, by experimenting with rats. Apparently, if you get a half-starved rat in a cage, and you have some food over here, and you have a barrier in the middle, the rat will work out how to get over the barrier. They're very clever. The notion that if you have a reward here, the rat will find its way to get the reward has been transferred to our education system. And the thing is, rats are different to children. Alfie Kohn said, what rewards, praise, and punishments do is make children obey. They do this very well indeed. If what we want is to get children to do what they're told, then rewarding them, or threatening them, or praising them may very well work. But if we want to help children become creative thinkers, and independent adults, then rewards and praise are useless. They actually do the opposite of what we want. If you reward them for something they're interested in school, say, what happens is, if they're interested in this level, at this level, and we offer them a reward, whatever it is, a gold star or a chocolate bar, their interest goes up for the short term, while the gold stars or chocolate bars keep coming. When they stop, the interest in that activity, research tells us, does not go back to where it was, it goes below where it was. Rewards reduce our children's interest in things. Some people did a test, psychologists I think, a test with offering children kefir, a yogurt drink. So they gave one group, stay in the light, they gave one group the yogurt drink, and they drank it and enjoyed it. Nothing was said. They gave this group the yogurt drink, and when they drank it, they said, well done, good drinking. You finished it all up. Good girls, good boys. Oh. And for this group, they were promised a reward of a coupon or a ticket or something which would get them a chocolate bar. And when they went back later to offer the same three groups the same yogurt drink, this group drank it up again. They liked it. Both of these groups were less interested than the others. If we give people rewards, their interest in something is reduced. It also diminishes a child's autonomy. We were working with a lad called Carl, 18-year-old boy, in a residential school in England, a residential school for children with very challenging behavior. And we were working with 3 or 4 children in a studio. We had lots of materials which they could interact with. And the Bamboozle approach is to see what they do and then join in the interaction and see if we can create learning from that. And in the second session, so we'd been with him about an hour and a half, he took a drum, a big African drum, and he wrapped it in some fabric. We thought, yeah, he's just wrapping the drum in some fabric. The teachers were amazed. And they were amazed because they had never seen him do something without checking with them first. And young people generally, but young people in special schools, young people with learning disabilities, have a lot of adults around them, a lot of support around them. And what Carl had been doing, some of the staff had known him for 10 years, and they'd never seen him make a decision for himself without checking with them to see if it was all right. Why not? Because often the adults around kids with learning disabilities give them more help, more praise, more rewards than they need, or is good for their development. We were in Alexandria in Egypt early this month, and there was a girl in one of the shows who, at the end of this show, there's a goodbye song where each child is sung to with their name. And the goodbye song had started over there, and the girl stood up, and she turned as if she was going to go, and then she looked a bit puzzled. Her teachers, we had asked her teachers to sit back and not get involved, to let children make their own decisions. And she then went and sat down again. The show went on, she was sung to, and she went. So in that moment, she had the opportunity to make her own decision, to discover that, actually, it's all right if I feel confused, because I can sort it out for myself and carry on. If we keep praising children, we reduce their autonomy. Final point, we also reduce their motivation. When my daughter Amelie was in primary school, they introduced an accelerated reading scheme. And I thought, that sounds great. I'm all in favor of accelerated reading. What this scheme is, the school buys a limited number of books from a corporation in the United States at considerable expense, and what that comes with is a computer program which has all the number of words in each book on it and some questions. And if you read a book, you then come and answer the questions, and if you answer enough, you get that onto your record, so you can count the number of words each child in your class has got, so you can have a table, and you can see who's top, or who's halfway, or whatever. What that does is, because reading actually is quite interesting all on its own. It doesn't need a reward of points for answering questions from a book. And Amelie was very interested in reading, so she was motivated to read. When the reward system came in, she continued reading, but a more limited number of books, and for a different reason. She was reading to answer the questions, to get the points, to beat the boys. That has some merit in itself. However, if we move children, their motivation from an internal motivation about doing something interesting to an external motivation about do this thing, reading a book, in order to get points, in order to get up the table, it's doing something for the wrong reason, and it won't serve the children all their life. Those are some of the problems with praise. So if not praise, then what? This is Annan, and this is in a show at the Shanghai Children's Art Theatre a couple of years ago. Annan lives in a city near Hong Kong, and her parents came up to bring her to two of our shows. And we asked the parents to sit back, to let the children experience the play how they will. And Annan's father said to me he felt that he'd have to come with her because she was very unsteady on her feet. She looked like she was going to go all the time. We went, oh, no, whoops. She spent the whole 40 minutes of the play. There she is again. There she is again. Moving around on the stage amongst the actors, and there's a lot of action in this play. Sometimes she found something to lean on. At the end of the 40 minutes, her parents told us, and she's 12, I think, that is the first time in their lives with her, in the whole of her life, that they had seen her being herself. It's a challenge having a disabled child, and it's a challenge letting go of one's children. But they were so grateful to have seen what she was able to do. And she wasn't praised by any of the actors. She had no reward. She was just allowed to do something interesting. I'm just going to show a short clip from Storm of at the beginning of the play. It's based on Shakespeare's Tempest, so it's on an island, and there's a shoreline. And on the shoreline, there are some bags and plastic being washed up, and the actors are playing with them. I'll just invite you to look at what the actors are doing and not doing. There's no praise going on. No one gets a reward for getting involved or a criticism for not. Next clip I'm going to show you is from a play called Down to Earth, also at the Shanghai Children's Art Theatre. And this is designed for children more like Amy and Jonathan. During this scene, the land girls have been sweeping up and the man have been sweeping up, and each child is invited to dance if they'd like to. And this is, again, a way of giving, because the thing, if not praise, then what? If not praise, then give value. Be interested in what the children are doing. And this is a way of giving value without praising or giving reward. And her mother, this is a very short clip, so don't blink, you'll miss it.
看这种，然后觉得就特别的把他当做了一个真正的观众哈，他是真正参与到中间去的。
And the world spins around like a ball.
So her mother said then it's the first time she remembers her daughter being treated like a real audience, like a real person in the audience, a person in her own right. It's fairly simple to give kids respect, not to patronize them, and to avoid giving loads of praise out. I think we need to challenge the assumptions that the girl in the wheelchair with her mouth open and no expression on her face can't think. She may very well be able to think deeply. I think we need to challenge the assumption that the boy in the wheelchair who says nothing has nothing to say. He might very well be able to write a book. And I think we should challenge the assumption that praise is a good thing. It might very well be damaging the education of our children. Thank you very much.